Welcome to the review of Rogue. Rogue is an adventure/role-playing game originally designed by Michael Toy and Kenneth Arnold. The IBM PC version was created by John Lane, and also a contribution was made by Glenn Wichman. The PC version was released in 1983. So it takes place in a dungeon. The whole goal of the game is to reach the Amulet of Yender, which is Rodney spelled backwards, retrieve it, and bring it to the surface. Your character is represented by the little smiley face ASCII character. One of the things that makes this game quite unique is the fact that only ASCII characters are used in order to represent graphics. You'll see here we just found a scroll which looked like a little music note ASCII character. And here we're walking up to a snake, which is represented by an S. In fact, all the monsters in the game are represented by a single letter character. The game implements a fog of war concept where you can only see the room you're currently in, and in fact that actually changes later as well. You walk through doors and passages, and of course you'll find treasure and all kinds of monsters. The bottom of the screen shows you the current dungeon level you're on. The higher the number, the deeper you are in the dungeon. It also shows your hits or hit points, strength, how much gold you have, your armor class, and your experience. Now the armor class actually is a little bit different than how Dungeons & Dragons worked back then. The higher the armor the better, whereas in Dungeons & Dragons you wanted a lower armor class. Now right off the bat I'm showing something really strange about the game. The fact that you can throw arrows or bolts at an enemy, and then after you have thrown them you can pick them up. So that's kind of a cool concept. Now monsters sometimes can hide in the corridors, such as you can be walking and all of a sudden run across a hobgoblin. Eventually when you kill enough monsters you'll get enough experience and go up in level and become more powerful. There is a fast play concept where you can hold down a certain key and when you move it makes you move very quickly. The help menu displays all the commands in the game, which is extremely useful. And there's also the ability to see what the various icons or ASCII characters mean in the game. There's a way to see what you've discovered in the game already. And thank goodness this game has a save game feature, because it is very difficult. You'll be dying very often. You get to choose the file name so you can have multiple saved games, and you restore by typing in the file name after the rogue command. Now eventually you'll start going downstairs in order to go deeper in the dungeon. You will eventually start finding these mazes or corridors. Since the game only shows you one ASCII tile around your character, it can be quite tedious to traverse these mazes. The game does implement a food or hunger aspect, so eventually you become hungry and you have to eat. And if you wait long enough you become weak and then finally faint, and you will keep fainting until you get fed. What's bad about the fainting is the fact that monsters next to you can start attacking you every time you faint. And of course you will die because of this. When you die you're presented with the Rest in Peace screen. And then it also shows you the Hall of Fame, so you can see who has scored the most. And of course gold is basically the point system in the game. Now eventually you'll start finding treasure, like weapons such as a mace, which then you need to equip, or it won't be used. Or you'll find throwing weapons such as darts or studded leather armor. Armor is very useful in the game. Now in order to equip it you have to first remove what you have on and then put the armor on. It's a little bit tedious and confusing, but luckily the help menu is there. Here you can see some food represented by that little character. And of course you'll eventually find potions. Now what's interesting about this game is different potions and scrolls have names. For example, here we have aquamarine or a white potion, which you can then quaff. Now what's interesting is the game randomly chooses what type of potion it is based on the color at the beginning of the game when it's generated. And then it keeps that consistently throughout the game. So for example, the violet potion in this case raises our max hit points, but the next time you play the game it may not do that. Some potions are what I call cursed, such as a paralysis potion or one that makes you sick when you drink it. And then here's one that we found which says it makes you feel warm, and what it does is restores your strength that was lost from being poisoned by a rattlesnake. Here we found a potion that makes you move faster, which I didn't really understand for sure what it meant, because then later it just says it slows down. I found a potion of gold that makes you see darkness all around you, and so you can't see what kind of monster you're fighting. It just says it hit you or you hit it. I found a potion that would actually level you up. That was an amazing potion. I only found one in the dungeon the first time I played. And then eventually you'll find some scrolls which have magical effects as well. Now the scrolls are interesting because they just have these random words as their name, and they always appear to be different. Like this one gives a two-handed sword magical ability, so it increases the damage or the two hit. You can have either one increased. I found a scroll that says it makes you feel like someone's watching over you, but I couldn't tell any apparent effect from that. Or scrolls that say you hear a growling noise, or your hand begins to glow red. So there's all these mysterious things that happen in the game that you can't really determine what they are. There's a potion of magic sense which shows you all the magical items in the map, which is great, represented by that little $sign. Once you go into the room, you have to explore around, then you'll find the magic item. I found a scroll that revealed the entire map, which was awesome, and those were pretty rare. There was also a scroll of teleportation, which randomly teleported you to a different room in the dungeon. You might think, well, that's not very useful, but if you're getting chased by monsters, sometimes it is. One of the best scrolls was a scroll of identify. And what this does is let you select a single item in your inventory, and it'll tell you what it is. And incidentally, once you do identify a certain color or type of item, any that you find in the future will automatically be identified. So here, for example, it tells us a potion of gain strength, turquoise, because we had already identified it before. You can find magic rings like this granite ring, and you can have one on your left hand and one on your right hand. In this case, we found one that increased our damage. But again, that's only during this game. If you play it the next time, it might be different. You'll find rings of regeneration, which increase your hit point recovery rate, or rings of searching, which are totally awesome. It basically makes it automatically search when you walk. Some rings are actually cursed, and unfortunately this is really bad. Here I had a ring of confusion, which you'll just walk around being confused, which randomly teleports you to different areas in the dungeon on the same level. And you try to remove it and it tells you can't, it's cursed. You can identify a cursed item with the identify scroll. So that's why those identify scrolls are so priceless. Eventually you'll find staves, like this cinnabar staff, and you can use them to zap in different directions. Sometimes they're attack type weapons, like this magic missile staff, and other times it just lights the room. For example, this staff. Eventually you'll carry so many items that you cannot pick up anything else, and you'll have to drop some items to pick up some others. Now there is so many commands in the game represented by characters on the keyboard that I had to continually go back to the help menu to remember. For example, to take off the armor you had to hit a capital T. So now let's talk about some of the hazards or special abilities of monsters. Rattlesnakes can make you feel weak, which lowers your strength. There's a Xerox monster that copies and makes it look like a treasure item, so then when you get next to it and try to pick it up, it attacks you. Very clever idea for the time. You'll run across vampires, which can lower your maximum hit points when they hit you. And one of the worst in the game is the Wraith. It'll actually drain your level. This is especially hazardous as you become more powerful because you lose that much more experience when you drop a level. There's a phantom monster, which you can't see where it is because it appears invisible. And then there's these Aquator monsters, which actually lower your armor. Those are extremely annoying. Now, one type of armor that is immune to these attacks is leather armor. So if you start to see one, you can quickly take your armor off, put on some leather, and then you'll be fine. There's some really tough monsters like this Urville, which can kill you almost instantly. Same with griffins, very tough. Trolls, killing you all the time. So you better get used to dying because it's going to happen a lot. And make sure you save your game and restore it frequently. There's also extremely tough dragons in the game which can shoot flames at you. Here I found a kind of interesting quirk where it kept saying the flame bounces and whizzes past the dragon. I don't know if it was because I was standing in the door and it was trying to attack me, but the flame was not able to hit me. Now you regenerate hit points in the game by walking around, and depending on if you have a ring of regeneration and some other things, it'll speed it up. You will run into various traps, like a dart trap or a sleep trap, which makes you fall asleep where monsters can attack you, or a bear trap. Same kind of concept. But one of the worst is a trap that makes you fall down to the level below. Sometimes you can find the traps by searching, but the search command is very tedious and takes a long time. Plus, it makes you hungry quicker. Speaking of which, you have to be very conservative with your food because you can only carry one quantity of food at a time, except for the mango. For some reason there's a mango in this game which appears as a separate item. So the key to conserving your food is to wait until you become weak and then eat the food. The game also has some funny things, such as a fake DOS prompt. So if you're at work, you could drop into this fake DOS prompt, but it was almost a joke because no commands actually worked. And then of course there's some funny comments in the game, like this potion. Wait, what's going on, huh? What? Who? So overall this game was a lot of fun. The randomness was crazy, especially for being a 1983 game. It was a great mix of combat and treasury discovery. And of course, I didn't mention earlier, but the way you fight monsters is just by bumping into them, kind of like a hide-light effect. Now the ranged weapons in the game I found pretty much useless because you couldn't see them at a distance. It was too late to throw or shoot them because they were already on top of you by the time you found out they were there. And there's quite a bit of tediousness in the game. For example, the search command you're constantly pressing in order to find hidden doors, or you're having to traverse these tedious mazes. Now, the other thing I must mention about the search command is sometimes you have to hit it 5 to 10 times on the same spot in order to find a hidden door. But it is fun having this risk aspect where when you find a potion and you take a swig, you're not sure what's going to happen. It is cool how the game remembers and will let you know so that you don't have to worry about that again. And the identify ability with these identify scrolls is fantastic. It's really cool how when you hit the discovery command, it'll show you everything that you found. And the game is very difficult, but it's not impossible, so that makes it quite fun. You can find potions of healing too, by the way, in order to heal you, besides just walking around and letting regeneration happen. So coming up in a few seconds here, I'm going to show you what happens when you find the Amulet of Yender and beat the game. So you may want to stop watching if you don't like spoilers. So here's the Amulet of Yender. We find it always on level 26 of the dungeon. Once you find it, you can either start going down and continue to go down to improve your score, or you can try to head back up to the surface. So here I'm just showing you an accelerated view going all the way back up. Then once you reach level 1 and you find the stairs there, you leave the dungeon with the amulet and you win the game. Now one little added bonus at the end of the game is all your inventory is evaluated and you get a gold equivalent value for it. So overall I do really recommend playing this game, but only if you like a big challenge. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time.